Welcome to Old News. We're delighted to have you here. And today we're talking about Dan's favorite topic and one of my favorite people.
With Jay Wilson, Sports.
It's our old friend, Jay Wilson, everybody. Jay, it's great to talk with you.
It's great to have the band back together again.
Is this thing on?
Yes, Dan.
Oh, hello.
You're listening to Old News with Dan and Carrie.
This just in.
Breaking news to report.
We are live.
Old newscasters
Can we just say former?
Sure. Former newscasters reunite behind the mic after more than 20 years.
Old news is good news.
Stay tuned. It's so good to see you.
We never got to be on the team with you that much because we were at the opposite end of the universe from you, Jay. We were in the early mornings and you were the last show of the day.
Mm-hmm.
I think the only time I would see you was when I came back from a Monday night Packer game when we rolled into the parking lot at about 3:30 in the morning.
Oh,
Don't
man.
you love those? I bet you don't miss that at all.
I don't miss that at all. I'll get to the end of the third quarter. I'll probably shut the TV off and go to bed.
So, Jay, what are you doing now? What are you up to these days?
Well, I'm technically retired, but I still do some work. We have 2 dogs, 2 labs that I take great care of during the day so my wife can continue to work. We recently had a meeting with our financial advisor, and his comment was, as long as my wife keeps working, we're in good shape.
Ah.
So that was really good to hear. So I take care of the dogs. I run errands for my wife, whatever she needs. And I still do some broadcasting. I do some streaming work for the Big Ten Network on their Big Ten Plus, their streaming service that they're trying to expand. And I still do some play-by-play of high school tournaments. But I get to do the things I really like doing and got to keep all the fun stuff and got rid of all the stuff that I wasn't so high on.
Yeah, beautiful. When did you leave KOW?
KOW was 2006, and then I was in between. I focused on working Big Ten Network stuff for a year and a half, and then Channel 3 called and said, "You want to be a sports director again?" I said, "No, absolutely not. I was so done with that." But we talked, and one thing led to another. And so then I went to Channel 3 in 2008 and was there 11 years. So altogether, 39 and a half.
Yeah, you're kind of like an NFL quarterback where you retired a couple of times, you came back and finished your career with another team.
Yeah, I'm, let's see. Joe Namath did that.
Right.
Yeah, I'm Joe Namath, I guess.
And he had a bum knee, but you had a bum hip. You had a hip replacement at some point, didn't you?
I've got 2 bum knees. I've got 2 new hips, 2 fake hips. I went through the airport the other day, and of course I couldn't get through. They had a wand, mechanical things, but still.
Did you grow up playing sports? Is that where your interest came from?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't a great athlete. I mean, I was really good in grade school. In fact, my grade school, St. Joachim's in Pittsville, Wisconsin, which is the exact geographic center of the state.
And of the world, of course, too.
Yeah, here's how you do it. I had the school record for the 100-yard dash, and that was the final year of the school's existence, so it closed.
Oh, so it still stands. Nice.
St. Joachim's grade school.
That's the way to do it. So why'd you become a sportscaster then if you were such a good athlete?
Well, I wasn't as good in high school. I mean, I really, I was like everybody else. I wanted to be a professional athlete.
Mm-hmm.
The story goes that when I was at Wisconsin Rapids Assumption High School, I was on the freshman basketball team, and I always thought you got a number. It's always big to get your number assigned to you, and I always thought that you get a number because the coaches are reminded of someone when they see you play. Like if you're 23, you're Michael Jordan, right?
Of course.
And they gave me 25, and I could never figure it out. And it got to February of that first year, and I said, I finally got enough nerve to say, "Coach, how come you don't play me that much?" He says, "Well, we got better options to win games." I said, "Well, why'd you give me 25? He says, "Well, that reminds us that we either have to be 25 points ahead or 25 points behind before it's safe to put you in the game."
Oh my gosh.
So that pretty much ended the dreams of the NBA career. But I mean, it was just, I was going to be a chemical engineer.
Really?
Because the nuns at Assumption High School said, "You're good at math, you're good at science, you should be an electrical engineer. So I came to the University of Wisconsin, was going to be an electrical engineer, and just didn't like it at all.
Oh.
And one day the light went on and said, hey, you should be a TV sportscaster. And that's where it started. It was just that simple. And I actually, in high school, I dated a girl whose dad was the drive time announcer at the radio station in Wisconsin Rapids.
Oh.
Close to where I grew up.
Yep.
And
Farm
we broke
kid, right?
up. We went to college, but we stayed friends. And eventually I said, hey, does your dad have anything at the radio station that I could do? And so that my first job in broadcasting was playing Christmas music from 12 a.m. to 5 a.m. on Christmas morning.
That's a hot slot.
Whether 1 million people are watching or whether 3 people are watching, you learn that you got to be right as much as you can and be good to the 3 people that are listening. So again, the moral of the story is never burn your bridges with old girlfriends or boyfriends, because they could set you up for your career.
They might get you a job.
Right.
Good advice.
So Jay, you grew up on a farm though, right? You were a farm kid, right?
Yeah, we had 7 beef cattle
Mm.
and grew oats and corn and baled hay and things like that. But yeah, I was a farm kid, and it's the odds of a farm kid who wore glasses since he was in 4th grade and kind of nerdy, having a 40-year career in television. The odds on that seem to be quite slim, but I'm sure glad it worked out.
When did you decide you wanted to go into sports?
I was on a road trip to Pasadena, California. My brother worked at Caltech in Pasadena, and my other brother and I took a bus trip. We rode a Greyhound bus from Madison, Wisconsin to Pasadena to go to the Rose Bowl in 1977. We walked into the parking lot. Somebody said, hey, you guys need tickets? Yeah, here's 2 of them on the 50-yard line, 20 rows up. She said, how much you want for them? I said, $20.
Oh my gosh.
It was unbelievable. It was 1977.
That was meant to be.
Yeah. But on that trip, it was almost like my head was clear and I could say, hey, this is what I want to do. And it was, the switch flipped from electrical engineering to broadcasting on that trip. And yeah, I'm glad it did.
So how did you get your first? I mean, you were one of those like Carrie too. Carrie was like she got a job at Channel 27 pretty much right out of college, and you pretty much your first TV job was pretty much right after college too. How did you get that job?
It was. Well, it's all who you know. And when I was at the University of Wisconsin, the director of the journalism school is Professor Jim Hoyt, who a lot of people.
I had him too.
Yeah, right. And
we all had him.
Yeah, and so he kind of thought I was okay, and so I, when I graduated in May of 1980, I went, hey, if you ever know somebody who needs a sports guy, I'm your guy. Well, the first offer I got for a job out of college was doing radio sales in Hot Springs, South Dakota, which is in the shadow of Mount Rushmore.
Oh,
Think that paid a lot?
I'm guessing no.
Oh, guessing not. So I said, no, I'm going to wait. Well, Mark Shapiro was the sports director at Channel 27 in Madison. Mark Shapiro owned the Nitty Gritty restaurant for many years.
Sure.
Right, but Center there. He needed a weekend sports guy. And the reason he wanted to hire somebody quickly was because on weekends, he had to do the weekends until he hired a guy. But he wanted to be able to wait tables at his restaurant, the Nitty Gritty. So he could hire somebody as fast as he could so he could go wait tables on the weekend. Okay. So I come down for the interview on a Tuesday. He hires me on the Thursday, and I'm on the air on Saturday.
Oh my goodness.
It happened that quickly.
So were you anchoring already on Saturday, or were you were anchoring on Saturday?
Somebody helped me edit stuff, but I anchored. And the first show went absolutely fantastic. And I'm thinking, this is the easiest thing in the world. The second show on Sunday was one of the worst shows in the history of television.
What happened?
Well, the tapes were out of order, and one locked up, and I didn't know what to say or do at that point. And so it puts you in line real quickly that every day is not going to be great.
Yeah.
So
That-
you were using tape. Film was already gone by the time you started in 80.
They made the transition from film to tape 2 weeks before I was hired.
Mm.
Now in school, when we did stories, it was all on film. So
Okay.
so we did use film, but honestly, it was 2 weeks before I arrived at Channel 27 when they made the transition. So that was pretty fortunate too. You get the
That's
sense that I've been pretty lucky a lot of times.
Yeah, you must be a good person.
I don't know. I knock on wood every chance I get. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Same. Same.
Well, you're kind of a throwback really to the 1980s is kind of like I guess 70s and 80s, kind of a golden era of local TV, really. I mean, comes to mind like the Ron Burgundy type of, obviously that's a caricature, but TV was a little bit more like that than people know maybe back in the 70s and
Yeah.
80s.
Well, and Channel 27 had some pretty big names. Bob Miller was a sportscaster in the early 70s there, and he ended up being the radio and television voice of the Los Angeles Kings for about 35 years.
Wow.
And
Wow.
Gary Bender was right
Yep.
after him, I believe. Gary Bender had a long career on CBS television, did a lot of Final Fours.
Hmm.
And so, yes, so that was a bit of a golden era. Now, television in Madison, Wisconsin in the early 80s wasn't so great because the Packers stunk, the Badgers stunk.
For sure.
So sports wasn't as big a priority, but I'll tell you one thing, once the 90s hit, Alvarez comes to the Badgers, they start winning all the time. The Packers start going to Super Bowls a little later in the 90s. And then, Bo Ryan takes some basketball teams with the Final Four for the Badgers. So all of that came together in the 80s and 90s and 2000s to kind of justify the position of local sports in Madison, Wisconsin specifically a little bit more. So, again, very fortunate to be at that place at that time that really helped stabilize my career.
No doubt.
Did you always seem to be doing pretty much everything yourself? Sometimes you might have a third person in the sports department. For a while, it was you and Andy, and then the head intern, my husband, Aaron Knight, the unofficial intern of the sports department, who just liked to log tape.
Wasn't he official?
Maybe like deemed official in a moment by Andy or you, but he just loved to log tape, so he would hang out doing some of the work. But you really had to shoot, edit, gather. You seemed like a real one-person band back then,
Well,
and does that continue today?
And that was part of the fun of it, is that you got to do so much. And so every day was so different. You never knew what was going to happen every day. You mentioned Andy Kendi, who's my closest friend in television history. He was an intern for us in the early 90s.
Yeah.
And he sucked. He was an awful intern. I don't know if you know this, but I let him go.
You did?
Yes, he worked with us for a few months, and Andy's a bit of a free spirit in college.
He was a cheerleader too, wasn't he? Wasn't he a cheerleader too?
Badger cheerleader.
Yeah.
But one day I gave him the old, Andy, thanks for all your efforts. We're gonna move on.
Really? I never knew that.
6 months later, he comes back and says, "Give me another chance."
Oh.
And it was the best thing that's happened to me in television, because we were together at 27 for, I don't know, 9 years, maybe 8, 9 years. And he knew what I was doing before I'd do it. And I had a sense of what he needed before he knew it. And there are very few times when you find someone or a situation that goes like this. And
Right.
that's what that was. And I'm really grateful and happy that came to be. He's the godfather of one of our children.
Which one?
Young Brett, our
Brett.
youngest.
Okay.
Who's 6'6", 220 right now.
Wow.
Yeah. And
Oh my
Andy
goodness.
provided no spiritual guidance to our
Well, he thinks about them, I'm sure, once in a while. So
Yeah, it crosses his mind. We'll send him a picture once in a
Yeah.
while, you know, at the baptism. And, oh yeah, I remember that. So,
we've
Hey,
talked
prayers are silent.
we've talked about that a lot though, Jay, where, Carrie and I felt that way too, where we had a really great team with our morning crew at that time. And you find that, and that's not real common in any industry. But when you find that and you have it, it's really hard to lose it. Cause I know Andy then went on to other stations before
Now
you
that-
left, right?
and now that I think about it, I've been fortunate to have 3 of those situations. In the early 90s, Scott Klug was the news guy, Patty Lowe was the news anchor, Bob Lindmeyer was the weather guy, and I was there. And we had such rapport with each other. The Capital Times had a TV critic back then
Really?
that reviewed local TV news.
Wow.
And this was the greatest compliment we've ever had. We were deemed to be the news team that people wanted to tailgate with.
Oh,
And I've always thought that was the greatest compliment you could get, because
In Wisconsin for sure.
yeah, you're right.
the highest form of flattery.
Channel 3 was always up here.
Mhm.
They had all the gizmos and the talent and the experience and all that stuff. And we were always trying to fight and claw to get to be Channel 3. But that comment always stuck with us. So there was that great time of my career. Then the Andy Kendi years in the 90s. And then Chris Lizotte and Mike Fuller were another group that, and to this day, I'm pretty close to all those folks. And I wanted to be Dick Enberg. I thought I really wanted to be a network guy. And, the way you do it is you start, lucky enough to start in Madison, and you go to bigger markets. And so that was really the impetus of going to Milwaukee, is that I thought it would be a stepping stone to big network jobs. Well, when I worked in Milwaukee from 84 to 87, the Bucks were really good then. That was Sidney Moncrief years and that sort of thing. The Brewers were pretty good, not sensational, but I got to work with a lot of, and then we'd go to Green Bay all the time, cover the Packers. So it was really my first taste of covering professional sports.
Yeah.
And I didn't like it one bit.
Really?
What's weird about the mid 80s and covering a pro sports team is that, now it's all about branding, and people love talking. It's part of building their brand and endorsements and all that. But back in the mid 80s, one of the Bucks would see you coming with a camera and a microphone. They'd run the other way because they didn't want to deal with talking to you.
Right.
And that got frustrating to me. And my wife was born in Madison, grew up in Madison. We always kind of knew that we wanted to get back to Madison. And so because I realized that I didn't enjoy covering professional sports, but I really liked college and high school. Always have. So when things opened up back in Madison, I mean, it was just perfect. Because when I went on that trip to Pasadena, the one thing I said was, I want to be a sports director in Madison, Wisconsin someday. That's the thing I put in the family. So then we came back, and I got to be the sports director, not only there, but another place. That's pretty cool.
There's a really important thing I want to know, though. Yeah, we talked about you being a kid in the Rapids area, and I want to know about your prowess in punt, pass, and kick. I understand from sources that you were actually a champion in punt, pass, and kick.
There's no question. 1969 was the year. The first round of competition was in Pittsville. Pittsville, which is, so it's Wisconsin Rapids, Marshfield, Pittsville's in the middle. Pittsville's the exact geographic center of the state, as I mentioned earlier.
Right.
Which, if you make a paper cutout of the map of Wisconsin and you balance it on your finger, that's Pittsville, because it's the exact geographic center of the state. There's actually a metal stake on an island in the Yellow River in Pittsville that says this is the exact center of Wisconsin.
Oh
Wow.
my gosh.
Anywho,
So that's why you could kick and punt and pass so well there, because it's right in the center of Wisconsin.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm 11 years old.
Now,
Yeah.
wait, was this before or after the 100-yard dash?
This was Before. This was before.
Oh,
I knew I
oh,
was
the
on
precursor to the record.
it was ascending, yes. So I win the punt, pass, and kick competition in Pittsville. And I get this gold trophy, which I still have today, which is about like this. It's really a nice trophy. So then the next competition is in Toma, which is where the I's divide, 90-94.
Yep.
That's
Sure.
in Toma. Okay, so my punt is okay, my pass is okay, but I really need a big kick to like advance again.
Yeah.
I tried to kick it so far, I hit it off the side of my foot, and it measured 3.5 feet.
Oh,
Like a
no.
golf shank.
Yeah. So it was a precursor to getting the uniform number 25 at that point.
Oh boy.
But that was the end of that. But yes, I do claim to be the 1969 Pittsville, Wisconsin punt, pass, and kick champion. And not to make this all about Andy Kennedy, but you know Andy Kennedy's prowess in punt, pass, and kick?
No.
I do remember a story, but I don't remember the
He
details.
made the national finals.
Oh my gosh.
I think I've seen video of that actually.
Yeah, the's video of that, and he's like the hugest kid ever.
He was a big boy. Yes.
He was.
In fact, his what do you call it? And it's not Twitter anymore. His X picture is him wearing his Chicago Bears Walter Payton punt, pass, and kick uniform. So run to X and look at Andy Kennedy's picture.
And we're going to talk to him in a couple of weeks, so we will be sure to follow up.
Why do I picture Andy Reid kicking in punt, pass, and kick, and then I see Andy Kennedy? Because Andy Reid was the coach of the Kansas City Chiefs, of course, was also a big punt pass. He did it at the Super Bowl or something like that.
Yeah, it's exactly Andy Reid. I want to say Andy did that in Tampa at the NFC Championship game.
Wow, that is pretty cool.
But yeah, so my little Pittsville trophy is nothing compared to.
Oh, that's good stuff.
Yeah.
Jay, what did you enjoy most about being a TV broadcaster, being a sportscaster in Madison?
The most fun I had was going to high school games and talking to people. I really liked doing the 6, running out to New Glarus and shooting highlights, and at halftime just talking to people. Because you got a real sense of what you should be doing as a TV broadcaster to some extent.
Yeah.
You found out what they were thinking, what concerned them, not just in sports, but in their lives in general. And it's those relationships over almost 40 years that really were cool. In the later years of my career, I would have a number of people who would be in their 50s saying, "Hey, you remember when you interviewed me in the 1982?" Oh, I really don't. Said, "Well, you just interviewed my son." Like, so that was always cool to have a full circle kind of thing.
That is.
Made you feel young, right?
What's that?
Made you feel young, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've never felt old. I mean, I'm 65 now, but I don't feel it.
Good.
It's, I don't know if that kept me young or whatever, but I can still run around. I can still walk 18 holes of golf and that sort of thing. But the relationships with viewers were always the fun part. No question.
I always think of you in the sports department really doing a beautiful job with all the local sports. You made that a real priority.
Yes. And it doesn't seem to be as much today. I'm going to sound, get off my lawn now, but it's a lot harder because most local TV sports departments are 2 people. And so you have enough to just get the shows on the air to anchor. You don't have the flexibility to do all that stuff. But, I digress. And at 27, we of course always had the high school tournament telecast with hockey and basketball through the years that kind of led us to do more during the year because we had this big showcase of the basketball tournament telecast and the hockey tournament telecast that really kept us on the tracks to cover more local stuff, more high school stuff.
what an operation, and what a real gift for high school athletes and their families.
One day we added up how much content we were responsible for. Now, obviously, the game takes up, a large part of the content. But we'd start the games at 9 in the morning. We'd go until 10 at night, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 2 weeks in a row. And you got to fill halftime and between games. So we had to have all these stories and all these interviews and all that sort of thing lined up. And so I was the producer of the basketball tournament telecast for 13 years. And they didn't say, oh, just do that. You did your job, and then you did the other stuff, putting all that together at the same time.
Oh my gosh.
That
How did you prepare for those 2 weeks?
That was as much fun as I had the whole year.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, I looked forward to that more than anything. Partly because I played some basketball in high school. I wasn't great, but I was part of that. So I had.
When your team was 25 down, you played.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I was in there. Yeah. And you know what? If I got the ball, it was going up.
There you go.
Because I didn't have many chances to do that.
You miss 100% of the shots you never take, as they say.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But no, I mean, I look back at that, and if I had a chance to do that again right now, I would do that in a second. They wouldn't have to pay me, because that was just so much fun. Now, at the end of those 2 weeks, you were completely exhausted, and your ears would ring, because back in the day, the games were at the field house, close confined area.
Yeah.
Higher pitched, shrill high school voices cheering constantly for 6 days. My ears would ring until the next Tuesday, typically.
Oh my goodness.
Because there was so much noise. And as soon as it was done, I was like, gosh, I can't wait till next March.
Well, and it's so exciting. And when everyone's there bringing their best, everyone's cheering for each other. It's just, you can't deny that excitement.
Yeah. And it touched every part of the state. My wife's parents have a cabin up in the Eel River. And 2 years ago, I was in a store and a lady said, hey, you're the guy in the basketball tournaments. My last high school basketball tournament telecast was 2006.
Oh my goodness.
And the only time I was on television in northern Wisconsin was during the high school basketball tournament telecast.
That's really cool.
But I had done it for 30 years. But just that once a year, 2 weeks, that was enough to ingrain in their head that I was the basketball guy. But the ratings for the high school basketball tournament back then versus the NCAA tournament. Now, the NCAA tournament looks a whole lot different than it did back in the 80s. But our ratings, if a local team was playing, if like Sun Prairie was playing, the ratings for the high school tournament were better than the CBS NCAA tournament consistently.
That's incredible.
Now, I don't know if that's the case now. In fact, I'd be surprised if that's the case now.
Yeah.
The NCAA tournament wasn't the level it is now.
You couldn't gamble on it back then. Now you yeah.
That's true too. I wonder when Prize Picks is going to start doing high school games.
Oh, I hope not. I hope not. Yeah.
I don't know how you avoid it, but
yeah,
not there yet, but it's coming.
So
but NIL is in high schools.
Yeah, that's true. So let me ask you, I just want to ask you, do you think in some ways, I always thought this after I left TV news and local TV, and I know there's money involved and there's a lot of financial realities, but I also thought maybe local TV would become more local, less of those type of situations where you have the syndicated programming. And especially, I mean, you need local news, you need local sports, but is it just the financial realities make it impossible? Because it seems to me like I want to watch local stuff on local TV.
Just before I left Channel 3, I was so convinced that the only way local TV would survive is if it became more local. Local TV sports can't be ESPN.
Right.
They don't have the resources. They don't have the abilities. There's just no way. I think to this day, I'm still convinced that you have to do more Monroe high school basketball games than you do cover the Packers. But you got to have people to do that.
What are some of your most memorable moments over the years?
Oof. The one I always go to was the Badgers' first Rose Bowl, 1993 season, 94 Rose Bowl.
That's when I was in school.
Was that right?
Yeah, at UW.
Yes, I was young then too. You know that.
Bragger.
Yeah. So I believe it's still the most watched television event in Madison history. Did some ratings on that. There's a statistic called HUT, Homes Using Television, which is a reflection of all the TV sets that are on at that moment. What percentage of them are watching this certain program? If you can get 30%, that's typically pretty good. The research that I remember suggested that 90% of the homes in Madison, Wisconsin that had their TV sets on that day were watching the Rose Bowl.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, it's just a remarkable number, but believable because, you know, the Badgers hadn't been in 30 years. And so here they win it, and it's on Channel 27. So I'm the post-game show guy. So I didn't know what the number, you know, how popular it is, but I knew that like there were a lot of people watching this.
Yeah.
So I'm the guy after the game for this historic event. Okay.
And were you out at the game, or were you in the studio?
I was at the game. We had our live shot stationed by the Badger locker room, which is underneath the stands at the Rose Bowl. So they win the game and everybody's celebrating out on the field. And I'm standing there by the locker room trying to figure out what to say and do. Our first thing is to do the highlights. So somebody had edited highlights and I had to describe them, but we didn't have a monitor that I could see. So I had a list of plays and the producer in my ear was going next. So I would talk about play number 1 until I heard next. And then I would talk about play number 2. So we go down the list, we get down to the last highlight, and I've got nothing. You don't have phones that have final statistics or anything like that on it. So we get to the end of the highlights, and I have no idea what I'm going to say next in front of all these people that are watching because the Badgers won their first Rose Bowl. Well, out of the corner of my eye, I see this little commotion coming toward the locker room, and I don't know what it is. It's closer. They get closer. It's Barry Alvarez. Okay. He left the field a little early to let the players enjoy it. He's coming to the locker room. And fortunately, I had, you know, he was in his 4th year, I guess it was. Fortunately, I developed a relationship with him and we were on very good terms. And he's walking by. I get done with the last highlight and I turn around and go, well, here's Barry Alvarez. Barry, can you stop by for a moment? And sure, you know, he's like, sure. And I'm thinking, oh my God, he's going to swear on live TV. So we're on live TV, back to Madison. How's it going? You know, dumb questions, but it was Barry Alvarez in front of the largest TV audience in Madison history. And it could have been an absolute disaster because if he didn't happen to walk by at that moment, I had nothing else to say.
Oh my gosh.
You are living right, I guess.
Yeah,
so really.
I always go back to that one. You know, other than that, covering 3 Super Bowls and 6 Rose Bowls and 2 Final Fours that I thought Wisconsin would never play basketball in a Final Four in my lifetime. Well, I never thought they'd go to the Rose Bowl in my lifetime, come to think of it. But doing all that and 30 years of high school basketball games, memorable players, you know, you just look back on it and go, what's a farm kid from Pittsville? How in the world you fall into that? Did I mention I married a great lady and we have 3 great kids, and that's pretty lucky too?
You have.
Where did you meet her?
We knew that.
Where did I meet her? It was a blind date.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
She was coming off a rebound relationship, and the Chi-Chi's. You remember Chi-Chi's, a restaurant?
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it's no longer there, but it's right by. It's on Grand Canyon Drive
Yep.
here in Madison.
It was a high school hangout for us. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, is that right?
Oh yeah, it was.
Yeah. So my wife's roommate at the sorority and my roommate at the Greenbrier Apartments on Tree Lane here in Madison, they said, "Oh, we ought to just have them meet." So we met at the Chi-Chi's February 12th, 1983. We will celebrate our 40th wedding anniversary this November.
Congratulations.
Unbelievable. She's the best.
And the
And do your
kids are
kids-
they're all grown now, right? They're all
Kids are all grown. We have 3 grandchildren, which
Oh.
another one of my duties is to watch grandchildren.
nice.
And we are finding out why you have children when you're 30 and not when you're 60.
Uh-huh.
But we have 2 grandchildren in Milwaukee. If one of the kids in their daycare room gets sick, they have to stay home the next day. And I will get the call at 9:30 at night saying, "Hey, can you come over and watch our 2 kids? And what time you need me there?" They'll say 7 o'clock. So I leave here at 5:30 in the morning and go watch them all day.
You're a good grandpa.
About a year and a half ago now, you had a bit of a health scare, but
Yeah.
you look great now. Tell us what happened and how you've kind of recovered from that.
Well, it was, as you say, a year and a half ago. My wife and I were in Door County and we rented bikes. And we got to a hill and I couldn't make it up the hill. And my wife turned around and said, "That's the first time I've ever been able to kick your ass on a hill."
Yeah.
And I didn't think much of it. I just thought, I just, didn't get sleep last night or something. And then 2 weeks later, I'm at the state track meet in La Crosse.
Uh-huh.
And I felt this discomfort in my chest, not ache, not like double over pain, just discomfort. Felt that way Thursday, Friday. Saturday was fine. Sunday it came back. Monday was back. Tuesday, Wednesday, okay.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
That Thursday, I did play-by-play of the first 2 games of the state softball tournament at Goodman Diamond in Madison. I came home and I just didn't feel right. I walked into my wife's office here, this very one I'm sitting in now, and said, "I think I ought to go in and get checked." Now, for me to say that, she was stunned. I mean, because not that I'm some macho dude, but that's just something I've never really done.
Yeah.
So I went to the urgent care. They took an EKG and they said something doesn't look right. I'm like, okay, well, if you can see it on an EKG at an urgent care center, there must not be something, right? So I went to, we drove to University Hospital. I didn't do an ambulance or anything. So I get to UW Hospital and they admit me and they say, "Well, we're going to take a look." So they do the angiogram and then they take the camera and they look inside my heart and they find 2 major blockages. One of which is called the widowmaker, which some people are familiar with. Yeah.
Like your left artery or something like that? Yeah.
90% blockage in the widowmaker.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. So 2 stents, fixed me up. I didn't know what they'd find before I went under. I came out, they told me what they found and what they did. And I'm not much of a crier, but I absolutely cried. That's all I saw my wife and I just started crying. I was so grateful that I could see my wife again and hopefully could continue to see her for quite some time.
Were they surprised you had those symptoms for, a fair amount of time, a couple of weeks before you went in?
Yeah, I mean, it's, there's so many stories with that of so many macho guys who, "I'll be fine," it's nothing, and then it is something. And again, another important part of that story is the day that I went in, the day that I did the softball games and went to the hospital, happened to be the 40th anniversary of the day my dad died of a heart attack.
Oh my
gosh.
In 1982. And he was a farmer and worked the highway department all his life. I mean, he was in great shape, but 70 years old, his time had come. I had my 3 older brothers all had a heart incident of some kind when they were 62 or 63 years old, 63 at the time. So all that came together. and really, sat in my head. And I'm glad it did.
Mhm.
So have you changed your lifestyle now? I mean, do you have to eat differently? Have you had to lose weight? Or, I mean, you look great.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, yes to all the above. I've been on the Mediterranean diet, although I slip off the Mediterranean diet quite frequently now because of stuff.
For the
But
American diet or what?
yeah, pretty much. But I mean, you guys know what your diet is when you're working in television news. I
A
mean,
lot of Taco Bell, yeah.
Whatever you can eat fast.
yeah, I mean, you learn to eat while you drive.
Mhm.
Coming back from a story. But the big thing I'm told is the family history.
Mm.
Genetics, you can't beat genetics. UW Health people were great. They put you on a physical therapy program, a rehab physical therapy program that's just unbelievable. And I didn't realize how bad I felt before.
That's what I was going to ask. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, there were certainly clues like the bike ride,
Right.
Mhm.
but after, and you don't feel great for a couple of months after.
Mm.
Once you get over that hump and you pay attention to the people who know what they're doing, it's unbelievable how much better I feel now than I did back then. And I didn't realize how bad I felt back then because it's just kind of a gradual digression.
It's just your
Mhm.
life. that's how you thought you felt, right? Yeah.
Yeah. But now, my wife yells at me because if I'm shoveling dirt or something around the yard, it's like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine." So, so I work at a golf course. I pick range balls, which is the greatest job I've ever had in my entire life. I enjoy picking range balls at the driving range so much because it's just mindless work.
Mhm.
You wash them, you put them in the dispenser.
Mm.
There's you're lifting 40-pound baskets of golf balls, but I feel so good and feel so lucky that I'm able to do it.
Totally different topic. We can't let you go without having a word about PEXFL, the
Oh,
fantasy football league that my husband has been in with you for, we are calculating, we think 33 years.
I think it's at least it might even be a couple more than that.
Is that called a legacy league?
Oh my gosh.
They started as the Motor City Kokens when you were living in Michigan, I assume.
No, we were in Madison. I don't know where he got the Motor City.
Yeah, that's true.
I
Oh,
have-
it was
maybe because of his grandmother was from Michigan, but I don't know where he came up
Motor
with
City
that.
Kitties to start out.
Oh, Motor
See?
City. And then
Then-
when he met me, he changed it to Kokens, my maiden name.
And now you're at the Steel City Kokens, and
Us in Pittsburgh.
I believe this was a playoff season for the Steel City Kokens, if I'm not mistaken.
I think he got kicked out at some point, but yeah, he lost at some point. But
Well, Carrie, are you an important co-owner and make personnel decisions?
I think Dan could answer that one. No.
Very curious, highly educated about NFL football.
Yeah, yet you are prominently displayed in the team name.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess that's just how he's honoring me. So
Your charming personality, I guess.
I don't know. It's not my knowledge. Let's just say that.
There you go. Well, my team is the Old Married Guys. Well, it used to be the Old Married Guys. Bob Lindmeyer and I started, and we split, and now it's the Old Married Guy and Son because my son is now our personnel director. So
Very nice.
But
Are
guess
you
who pays-
actively playing your guys?
Yes, but guess who pays the fee every year, despite it being called Old Married Guy and Son?
The Old Mary guy. That's
Yes,
my money.
Son has very little to do with the financial.
That's how it goes.
Yeah, but
Yeah, but once he starts paying, then you know you are old.
that's true. Well, I actually look forward to the day when he starts.
I just one last thing for me is there anything you miss about being a TV sportscaster, or are you just done with that?
I'm just done with that. The day I left Channel 3 after 40 years, I didn't think twice about it. Not that I was bitter, not that I was angry.
You're just ready to move on.
Ready and grateful.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, again, what are the odds of a farm kid from central Wisconsin coming to Madison having a great 40-year career with so many highlights that you can't imagine, and meeting so many people that have all been so nice. And again, I still get to do some broadcasting. Again, the fun stuff, but I don't miss leaving the parking lot at 10:45 at night.
Mhm.
My wife and I are typically asleep before the 10 o'clock news happens now. I wish everybody in local television news the best, because when it's right, it's about the best job you can have. But to answer your question, I am just done. Thank you very much. I'm not coming back.
Well, I just thought of one other thing. Do you have a most embarrassing moment? Carrie usually asks this. Sorry, Carrie, I'm taking it from you.
That's all right. That you have a twist on it. I usually say bloopers, but you
Oh,
know.
okay.
I don't have one big moment that I go, oh my God. Oh, I was doing a live shot in Philadelphia late in my Channel 3 career, and some lady came out of nowhere and kissed me.
I was just gonna say, I remember when you got kissed.
Yeah, I got kissed, and there was a 5 o'clock newscast, and my wife was not watching. All of a sudden, a number of her friends and co-workers go, "Did you just watch the 5 o'clock news? Why? What happened? Some lady was kissing your husband."
Melissa, good afternoon, everyone. The Badgers and Notre Dame about a half hour away now, playing their Sweet 16 game here in Philadelphia. Well, I thank you very much. I'm speechless. The game means very little to me right now.
And our good friend Bud Light had something to do with it.
Oh.
Yeah, she had been imbibing, and I don't know that she was put up to it or not, but she just and but at the same time, if you're a graying 65-year-old guy and some young blonde comes out of nowhere and kisses you, I mean, that's not a bad day at the office, really. Think about it.
Jay, we could talk forever, but it's been awesome to talk and catch up with you and hear about some of your life in TV sportscasting. Boy, what a career, and sounds like you're in a good place now for sure.
There's no question. And thanks to you, you've always been two of my favorites, and I hope you feel the same way about your situations, that you look back and you say those were good days, and now things are good too, just in a different way.
Exactly. Amen to that.
Life is
Wonderful to see you, Jay.
Thanks.
Thanks for tuning in to Old News with Dan and Carrie.
That's old news for now.
Join us next time.